In this video, we're going to do some calculations with fluid drip rates. You'll see in the top corner here the 4 steps that we have to follow in order to get down to our drops per second, which is the answer we're looking for when we're doing it by drip rate. You can see also we have our micro drip set at 60 drops per ml, and our macro drip set we're going to say is 10 drops per ml. So the first thing we have to have in all of these problems is the mil per hour. Fortunately, we're given our order of our mils per hour here and what drip set we're using for each of our orders. So the first thing that we have to do, as we already have the mil per hour, is set up and divide by 60 times by our drip set, and again divide by 60 in our seconds. So let's set this problem up. We'll do 70 mils per hour divided by 60 minutes. And that's going to equal 1.16 ml per minute. So 70 divided by 60, 1.16. So then we're going to take our 1.16 mil per minute and times it by the drip set. And the drip set we're using here on this problem is a macro. So we're going to times that by 10 drops per ml. And that gives us 11.6 drops in a minute. Now, you could stop here and wait and watch for about 12 drops or so, or 11 to 12 drops in a minute. But that's a lot of time just standing around. So we're going to take it one step further with step 4 here. Take our 11.6 drops per minute and divide that by our 60 seconds. And that gives us 0.19 drop per second. But we really can't stand there and watch for a fraction of a drop, right? So we have to calculate this end point here to something that gets us to a whole number and times our second by that same amount. So in this case, we're going to say this is close enough to 0.2. If we times both sides by 5 seconds, times 5, we end up with about 1 drop in a 5-second time span. And that's something that I can sit there and watch and time my fluid line to give me about 1 drop in a 5-second time span. Okay, let's do number 2. So again, we have our very first step. Our mils per hour is already given to us. So our 25 mils an hour is our first step. We already have that. We're going to go ahead and jump into step number 2, which is dividing by 60 minutes. We have our 25 ml divide by 60 minutes, gives us 0.4 mil in a minute. And in this case, we're using a micro drip set. So we're going to go ahead and set that up, 0.4 mils per minute times our 60 drop per ml drip set. It's about 25 drops in a minute. And again, you could stand there and count 25 drops in a minute. You can, but nobody's going to do that. We want to get it down into seconds. So we're taking our 25 drop per minute and dividing that by 60 seconds. And that gives us 0.41 drop in a second. But again, I can't watch for a fraction of a drop. So how do I get 0.41 drops in a second to more of a whole number that I can actually witness a full drop? We're going to go ahead and say that this is close enough to half of a drop, right? So we're going to go ahead and times both sides by 2. In this case, we get 1 drop in 2 seconds. And I think sometimes this last little piece here is the hard part when we're ending up with a fraction of a drop. You just have to remember, what can I times this number to to get close enough to a whole number that I can actually witness. And then remember to do that by your seconds as well. Okay, let's go ahead and do number 3. So again, we have 12 mils an hour. So that's our step number 1, is just knowing what our mils per hour is. Step number 2 is just dividing by 60 minutes. In this case, we're getting 0.2 mil in a minute. Okay, and again, we're using a micro drip set, so we're going to take 0.2 ml per minute, times it by our 60 drop per ml. Takes us back to our 12 drops per minute. Again, you could stop and look for an entire minute, but we don't stop there. We've got to continue with step number 4, which is 12 drops per minute, divide by 60 seconds. And that's going to get us back to our 0.2, but this time it's drops per second. What can I times this fraction of a number by in order to end up with a whole number in a time frame that I can witness? Again, we're going to times each side by 5. Times them by 5, and that's going to give us the 1 drop again in 5-second time period. Okay, so that is your fluid drip rate calculations.